Alright, so I've long wondered how can I make a perfect circle in Howler. I can't use the shift key to lock it in this aspect ratio, so it's only approximate. So we're going to check and see different ways to make a perfect circle. By the way, the appearance of these circles or ovals, that's with the oval tool right there. There can be two different types. One in the upper left diagonal, upper left corner, is a hollow oval, and in the lower right is a filled oval. Right, so there's going to be a couple of ways we can use that, because for example, if you do a filled oval and then you do another one but in different mode, you could possibly subtract that, the subtractive mode. So if you do the same, it's supposed to, and it doesn't. Okay, maybe this one, there you go, right button. That's, oh, looks like that's not actually taking, the fill mode is not, this mode is for the brush. I guess the fill tool would have to be used to fill settings. There, this one here has its own mode, and there it is, fill mode. So you can do a subtract, and with the left button where the black color is, still not doing much there. So, oh, maybe I need to do color fill, that's it. Value, that's color. Yeah, I don't know, there's so many options to explore, so we will go into a few of those. One thing I did notice is that you can combine, I was hoping with the shift key or something, which you see many times in other programs, you can do hollow circles like this with the right button. Oh, I'm see for the line tool, and that's using the settings on the brush. You do have this. That's a subtractive mode now. So additive, divide, screen mode might produce something. Yeah, it all depends on which mode and which brush and other things you have here. So many different scenarios to consider. If you want the regular, use the default here, that will use the fill tool. For some reason it's choppy now, I'm not sure what happened there, but one thing that you can certainly see is that you can also use the shift key and nothing happens there, but with the control key I noticed it's kind of locking it. With the alt key it's not doing much either. With the control and the alt key, it seems like it's changing something, maybe the size of the brush. Right, control and shift, no, that's moving things around. I think control and alt key will change, so then yeah, I'm gonna need to reset things because I'm getting into a smaller size now here. Anyway, let's get started with maybe a more traditional approach, one that I've seen, and here we go. So I have the sidebar, which you can have on the left side, on the right side. I have it on the right side here, and if you scroll down on the sidebar at the very bottom, you will see a couple of things. There's a visible grid, and that could be used as a reference to just draw your circle. Really, you're drawing an oval, but you're trying to go along a diagonal fill there, imaginary line. And you might, this is probably too dense, so make it a little bit bigger there. Horizontal and vertical. Let's make it the same value, like let's say 55, because I'm lazy. I don't want to look for a second key. And then here 55, that's easy enough. So find a cross point like this one that's close enough to the center, and then put the cursor there, and then you go up into that diagonal here. From wherever you started, go up the diagonal, and that should keep it pretty much in a circle shape. You can see when you look at how the circle approaches this horizontal around here, or this vertical over here, as you stay on the diagonal, it will make it a pretty darn close perfect circle. And one thing you could do is just make it a pretty big one, like this, and then you pick that up as a custom brush. There you go, custom brush pickup tool, and you have maybe, I don't know, something like this. You know, it's approximate, but it's probably good enough. And then you can make that custom brush transparent, so it picked up the white background and the black circle. The grid is only an overlay, it's not actually there. You can turn the visible grid on and off, so that's not needed anymore. But the custom brush we just picked up, you can right click and you see it's already got the transparency on the background here, because that happens to be the background color. So when you pick up a custom brush, if a pixel is the same as this secondary color, it becomes transparent. It is flagged in the alpha channel of the brush as transparent. Now there may be a little bit of white borders depending on the fluffiness of that circle of the brush. You might need to adjust a little bit here, and you can do that to get an even crisper black line. And so that's a brush you would probably want to store. Let's say store and manage that. There it is. You can close this, and so now you go back to the paint tool, the brush, you make sure you show the brush, and there it is. So now you have a circle, and you may want to stamp it down. That's this one here, the freehand dotted or stamped mode. So this is, well, you need the first click to get the keyboard attention or the mouse focus, but now you can put your circles where you need them, and if you need them bigger, it's going to be or smaller. Now it's going to make the entire image smaller, so it's going to make the circle also thinner, which sometimes you use to your advantage, but then sometimes it's reaching a certain level of graininess there. So this approach here is a quick and fast resize. There is a better way too. Let's say if we restore this, so we now have the original brush size, and I'm going to resample that from the brush menu. You can resample it right there, and so you can make it a bigger or a smaller. So let's say you needed a really big arc there, so there you go, you get a big circle, right? So that's the technique in general. If you want a circle that is wider, there's a couple of ways to do that. Let's say, for example, I do this here, restore. I think I needed this at about 100, something like that, right? So let's say we want this, and we want a slightly bigger one. If you paint it down there, or maybe that was the original circle, right? So let's go back. In fact, this time I'm going to use not the visible grid, but instead the artist guide, which is also equally interesting, and it has a diagonal line, but this is not a square here, so be careful about that, because it's going to take your existing image and subdivide it into a 2x2. So you might want to actually initially make your image a square if you need that to be the reference. So let's do that. Let's say you need 1024 by 1024, for example. So you now have a square, and now you know that diagonal is still going from one end to the other, but it is in a perfect square here. So you could certainly use that. Where was it? That's the artist guide right there. If you have a dark color in the background, let's say if you erased it, it might be difficult to see it at times. So here's the color you can change if you want a different, distinct color, brighter or darker. And I'm going to switch back here. I like the white background better here. But you can also increase here how many of these subdivisions you get. Maybe 7 by 7. There you go. So you still have a center here and a line of diagonal direction you can go, right? So if you go back to this thing here, let's clear that circle there. If you go back to the hollow circle, and you may want to zoom in a little bit, something like this. So you have the circle going from here, but now the problem is that it's using the custom brush, the current brush, whatever the brush is, and I still have that circle here, so you may want to free that. So use brush free. Okay, so that brush is no longer there, which means it defaults back to the default, maybe the anti-aliased, where is it, settings. You have a couple of brushes. You have either a custom brush here, or you have the AA pen, the anti-aliased pen. So that's probably what it's doing now. And if you draw this, you can see the circle. It's a little bit fluffy on the edge. It's not exactly very crisp, and that's where the Control-Alt can change it. You can use the Control and Alt key to change the size of that brush. And so that could be also an interesting one. But most importantly, once you have the size you want, again, from the center here of those artist guides, just go up along the diagonal, and that should keep it in a fairly circular shape. And there you go. Now, so again, that's a pretty big one. If you need a smaller one, you do the same thing again here. Go up to the diagonal, and you can see you can get pretty nice concentric circles that way. Right. Now, that actually brings me up to another option. In fact, I'm going to store this one just so we have a little recall of some of the techniques we used. So another option is to actually do concentric circles. We probably have some filters here. I would say maybe some of these will have the ability to draw circular shapes. I'm going to have to explore those a little bit more. Some cellular maybe, yeah, but these are randomly positioned. So yeah, some of them might be good enough circles for our use case. So separate them, and with any luck you might find one that is, let's see, cell size, grid size. So yeah, make them bigger. There you go. There's a circle that's not touching another fill circle, right? So how can we use that? Well, let's say we keep this, and then we need to shift the whole thing maybe to the center. So use the filter, transform. There it is. Actually, it could be the shift tool, but this is good enough. Something like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. But what we do want is to get rid of this bottom one there. So let's use the rectangle fill with the primary color. So that's going to be blacked out. Or so we thought. That's the rectangle fill. No. Oh, maybe it's the right button. Why is it the right button? That's odd. Anyway, I can get this erased. So now I have the circle there. Let's get rid of the artist guides for now. And so how do I turn this into a hollow circle? Well, there's a couple of ways to do that. You could, for example, use the filter to threshold it. So because right now we have gray, soft gray values here, from black to dark gray to light gray, all the way to probably bright. It's not necessarily fully white, so we can go to image dynamic range. In case we didn't have it completely white, we now have a pixel here that is white. So we have the whole dynamic range from black to white. And then you can adjust the filter here to, say, a threshold. And with the threshold, it's going to be either one or the other. No gray values in between. So as you adjust that, you can see you can go to a small circle or a big circle. And so the way you can use that is you do two circles and then you subtract one from the other. Right? So that's kind of a Boolean operation in a way. So let's cancel that first. Let's keep an image here. Let's store this because we will want the same again. So we can create one and then another size. Let's minimize this brush. And let's go here, and we can go to adjust threshold or adaptive threshold. I haven't used that one. No, that one is producing interesting effects here. That's not the one we want. This one here could be. That's about probably the same as the regular threshold. So let's instead use the regular threshold here, adjust threshold. And what you see with this, in fact, this is a good example for side-by-side view where you see the original and you see the modified based on the filter's action, right? So you can adjust where that threshold is turning it from white to black. And let's say you go to the maximum, okay that, and you store that. And then you restore the original either by clicking here or by doing an undo. And now you do the same thing again, adjust threshold, but this time you go to the same value and then you just go a tiny little bit this way and it will shrink it a little bit. let's say something like that, and you store that. So now you have the two images, this one and this one, right? This is like at the eye doctor. Which one is better? First or second? Before or after? What you do now is you take the bigger one, or whichever one, and you subtract it from the other. Actually, yeah, you do want to combine, let's say, if you do the subtract operation, you take the bigger one and then subtract from this one here. So select this one and then go here and select the subtract, combine by subtraction. And boom, now you subtracted the smaller circle from the big one, and you get a big circle. You get a nice hollow circle. Now it's not perfect, but it may be good enough. It's a little bit jaggedy here because the threshold doesn't give you any gray values. So that's another thing you can also use. You can do a little bit of softening there, blurring it. Simple blur might be good enough. You see it's already better. Maybe you do it 2 or 3 times. There's a couple of other blur options that might be useful. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur, of course, box filter. Some of these will be just perfect, and then so you can give it a little bit of a soft appearance there. And then, of course, if you need it, go back up with the image dynamic range. So it's a little bit brighter at the center, but you still maintain that little bit of softness that gives it a nice aliasing or anti-aliasing. And then, of course, you could pick that up as a custom brush again. And this one here, the black is the background, which is the primary color. So it's probably going to be filled as the brush here. If you show the brush, yes, it's not hollow, right? It didn't make it transparent. So you can store it, but you may want to change the background transparent here. So right click on this custom selection tool, and then you can key it to black. There's probably a couple of other ways to do that too, by the way. Keying it to black, there's probably brush, transparency, and there, key to black, right? So that's another way to do it. And then once you have that, you have the transparency inside and outside. There's a little bit of the edge. You can still see a little bit of darkness on the transition, and that's normal, but you can also kind of eliminate that with the brush transparency. Where is that option? Invert transparency. It's probably one of those here. Key grow. Oh yeah, you can feather, you can key grow. You have some more options here to adjust where that transition is and how strong that black or white glow appears. Another thing you could do is, let's get rid of this here. If you pick this up, but you first invert it, right? So you could use the inversion filter, or actually right here on the image, invert. So now you have this black circle. Let's get rid of this preview here. So you could then at that point with the white color, I seem to have 2 colors that are the same, so I probably will want to have right click for the color picker. Where is it? There. And there you go. So now I have the white background color. So now when you pick that up, it automatically keys it to white, and you have a transparent circle with a little bit of a white edge, which is fine if you're looking at the white background. But then again, if you stamp it down, you may end up not liking that, because at the intersection you can see the transition to white. So we will want to key that too. I think there's an option here on the brush. Let's see, transparency, invert transparency. I'm trying to remember where that was. Pre-multiply. There it is, pre-multiply correction, that's what it is. So when you see that, you say let's pre-multiply to white, and I think that will do a little bit of magic. Not quite enough. You may need to adjust it in some other way, but let's see. If you needed a couple of circles like that and you're happy with that, that's an option. Another way to do it too, by the way, is with some of the other tools. Let's see, for example, the curve tool. Alright, so with the curve tool, you're essentially drawing a couple of points, and the moment you have 4 of them, it's doing a smooth curve interpolation. You can change the Catmull or centripetal, or what's that, chord length. There's also a B-spline. So what you can do is continue drawing these circles, and once you close it, you might potentially have a circle depending on how many control points you have here. So I'm not an expert at the B-spline, but there is an option to probably create something that looks very close to a circle. And in fact, let's try that. I'm going to use again the artist guides, or maybe this time the grid, the visible grid. And oh, there's a few missing here. I guess it's a zooming aliasing here. Okay, so let's say we want a little bit bigger. Let's give it 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3. All right, so we have, this is the center, and we will want to have the control points. Let's see here, this one here is add a point. Okay, so if this is going to be the circle, let's say we go up 2 and we go over 2. So let's say we start with this one, and then we go 1, let's click 1 here. I'm not sure if that's what's going to be needed, but let's go click 1 here, go over 2, go over another one, go up 1, go up another one, go up, and now close it. All right, so that's not it. That's not exactly a circle. That's not much of a circle either. So now maybe if we use these, but we move the control points down in a little bit. Let's say we move it down this way. Oh, that's looking a little bit better. And so we go to the center of this square. And we do the same thing here. Go to the center of this square. Grab this, go to the center of this square. And this one, go to the center of this. It's all very approximate. It's not exactly a circle, but maybe good enough for me, right? And maybe we need something like this. So maybe exploring some of these clever positions of the points, control points of the spline curve, and then how do we actually render the circle? This is just a little circular control structure, and we can adjust now what to render along it. So you could see there's finishing it with the current brush, and that's not what I'm looking for, because it's probably going to look really messy. Yeah, it's got that circle currently still in there and looks pretty messy there. So what I'm gonna need is the non-brush based. There's some other options. I'm trying to remember where they are. That's it. Well, there's a fill shape too. Could use that. With the current fill settings, who knows what those look like right now. But there's another option. I'm trying to remember where that was. Well, okay, color fill. See, it was in subtract mode. Of course, that didn't look good. Let's go fill it. All right, so that's gonna be an option too, perhaps. Then we could apply some transform. I think we can right-click that. No, that's not it. I thought there's an option to transform all of these points at the same time. So yeah, you have me stumped here. I thought we could explore that, and there probably is an option to get it to a perfect circle, but it's a little bit cumbersome. That's not the one I would recommend at this time. Let's move on to some other options, unless I can find it right now. There's the browse mode. There is another, well, maybe it's hidden behind my capture tool. I can't see it here. Yeah. There's some other options here. This motion. That's the size, but see, I'm not drawing with the brush. Okay, that's. No, that's not it. Anyway, let's not waste much time on that. Let's go see some other options. It's just one I wanted to mention. There probably is a way to make a perfect circle, but I just haven't had time to explore it yet. Alright, so other circles may be in the alpha channel. So we're going to go look at that now. In the alpha channel, if you're drawing a circle selection in the alpha channel, something like this, right? Same idea, you go along the diagonal and you have this seemingly pretty good circle. Okay, boom. All right, now how do you work this to make it a hollow circle? It's a filled circle in the alpha channel. Well, one thing you'll do, first of all, you'll store that selection. So you'll have a snapshot here. Okay, here it looks more like an oval. It's simply not keeping that aspect ratio in the preview, but that's okay. We have a snapshot of something that's pretty much circular here. And what we'll want to do is simply grow it a little bit or shrink it and then subtract it from the other. So we can go to the selection and say grow or shrink selection. Let's grow it a little bit. So we will see that selection grow by maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6, let's say 10 units, 10 pixels basically. So it's now a little bit bigger. And now we subtract this stored copy from it. And bingo, you now have a selection that does include the difference between the two. And so now you can fill that with so many different things. I mean, of course, you can paint over it, or you can, with the fill tool, go and fill in here, and it's going to fill it to whatever that color is. But you can also use the gradients. You can say a linear gradient, and that could be this current grayscale gradient, so it goes, fills it in different ways. So that's a little bit more than just a plain circle, right? You could say some rainbow colors. Where are my rainbow colors? There. Let's say something like this. Look at that. So lots of different ways to get that circle to show you the colors. If you don't want to see that pink indicating where the selection is not, the overlay, you can hide that. You don't even need to see the marching ants of the selection. You can turn those off if they are distracting. So now you just see it happening without it interfering with what you're looking at. So you can also hide the grid, visible grid. There you go. And now it's kind of magic, right? And you could do a whole slew of different things here. You could have, you know, if you go back to that selection that we still have an effect here. It's good to see it actually. Let's get the overlay there. If you want that selection to be a little bit bigger, so let's go replace this. That one actually you could fill with another gradient. So that's a smaller circle here now. And let's say we make another shrinking it this time instead of growing it. So let's shrink the selection this time by this much. And so now you have another one, and you put yet another circle in there, another gradient, right? And then clear the selection. Now you have one filled circle, one hollow circle, and another one hollow circle all around it. So yeah, working with these circles is not totally trivial, but it is very powerful too. Let me think about one or two other ways. Oh yes, so here is another option. What's that? Under the render menu, you will want to explore some of these filters. Some of them, like cellular, may have something to do with circles as one of the options. I thought I saw another one here, water drops, right? Water drops are usually circular. So let's see what that looks like if I place the light source here. Oh yeah, so we do have circles, but then they are really half spheres, and there's a reflection, there's a shadow. Let's go get rid of the reflection and the shadows. So you now have a bunch of circles, and I don't think any of them overlap. You can see many more of them. Yep, the algorithm is looking for non-overlapping. You can place the light really far away, or you can place it right there. The number of drops, the size of them, so you could easily find a perfect circle right there. Maybe have fewer of them. There's one that's well enough separated, right? So try something like that, and you have a circle you can select. Now you can of course adjust maybe the colors to have less of the shading. I don't know if there's water. That's the refractions effect. Get rid of that. Maximum number of tries. Ooh, I don't know what that is. That's how many times it tries to have it find a place for a circle, perhaps. Yeah, something like that. How many times can it find a circle in there at different sizes that will not intersect? They are supposed to be non-intersecting, I think. Let's do black and black. Style bubbles and bumps. Oop, that one's not a bump. That's interesting. Maybe we need different colors for that. Maybe we do need shadows. Yeah, I'm not sure what's missing here. Maybe that's too many. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with that value. So let's go back to bubbles. That certainly works. So anyway, that's an idea. Where else can you find a circle? Some of these filters will involve circles, and then of course you can pick those up. Let's say, for example, I put this thing here, click it a few times until I have a really nice big circle size. Yeah, this one here. Let's say I'm interested in this one. The coloring is not perfect, but maybe just the shape is what I'm looking for. So okay, that, or even this one, right? So what you could do at that point is do a selection with the select magic wand on anything that's white on the outside. It doesn't go into the circles in this case, lucky us. So we can now just pick that up as a custom brush. Let's go custom brush pickup tool and select something like this. And there you go. So now you have that in the brush. And of course you need to invert the selection. That's from the brush. Transparency. There's probably an invert here somewhere. Invert transparency. There's a shortcut. There you go. So now you have that circle filled right there. The selection mask is still preventing drawing those circles that are there non-selected, but the inside, the background, we can paint into. So that's another option. And of course, let's see what else could we do here. Let's go clear the selection. God, look at that. I mean, you could blur this thing a little bit first, blur it with a box filter or Gaussian or something like that, just a tiny little bit, and then clear the selection here. And now you have some, or maybe still keep it there, but give it a slightly darker appearance. Filter photographic, day for night, less contrast, and now we have nice standing out of these circles. All right, let me think about some other ways to make circles. Oh yes, let's go back. So let's hide this. So another option here under render, non-overlapping shapes. There's probably a few more I haven't there. Shape bombing, whirly noise, who knows. Some of these water drops we saw earlier, gems might have some circular shapes, but non-overlapping shapes for sure. So here we have, I think square is the default, and test render that, but you can go to circles. Oh, there's a loud airplane nearby. And we can non-overlapping shapes. So let's say we do shape count just 1 or 2. Let's see what happens there. Well, there's not much happening. Oh, I clicked the wrong button. Let's go do that again. So filter, render, non-overlapping shapes, test render. Right, there's a circle. Test render. It's randomly placed. It might not even find it sometimes. Let's do 2 circles, test render, test render. So yeah, we need a few more to be lucky with 1 or 2 good ones here. Let's do 12. Now maybe we need the size to be bigger. Let's say 555. I clicked the OK again. That's the wrong. I need to click test render. Render non-overlapping shapes. I'm doing these mistakes on purpose, of course, just to get you to not experience that. There you go. There's a couple of filled circles. Maybe we can do even more. Let's do 34. Test render. Yeah, still not so good. Oh, there's not room for many of those at that size, so maybe we need to make them a little bit smaller. That's not it. Oh, minimum size. Let's do 66. Yeah, so it does start bigger that way. Let's do 666. Ooh, that's a scary number. Shape count. Let's do just 5. Yeah, that's not working. That's not working either. Okay, we're definitely a little bit off here. The spacing, let's do 44. So you're gonna get something there eventually. Outline color. Ah, you can give it a different color for the outline of these circles. Oh, and I clicked OK again. This is so annoying. I should focus. Focus, focus. Focus, focus. There you go. Non-overlapping shapes. So there you go. Test render. Okay, yeah, so you can do that. You can give it a... Oh, that's why we didn't see them. For some reason it gives them black background. I guess that's the filled inside is black. And since I had the black erase color in the background there, maybe that's this color. I don't know. Let's say if I change this, is that going to be a different color for the fill test render? No, it is the background. This is the background color. There's the outline color. Ah, and then this black is the primary color. That makes sense. So if I want to give it a different color for the circles, that's why it wasn't showing before, because I was erasing to black but also filling to black, and I was not showing an outline. Okay, so it's not a bug, it's me. I'm the buggy one. So let's say I do something like this, test render. Yeah, so that's the background color. And if I want the circles to be filled and not showing an outline color, maybe what you do is you draw. I don't know what to do there. You could certainly start with the same color, the primary color, and then make that also the outline color. Anyway, so there's a couple of ways to get a circle there. Let's say shape count. Let's make it fewer. Let's make it a bigger one. Let's say 555. I clicked the OK again. Yeah, it's supposed to be easy. It's easy to get into a trap. Non-overlapping. Test render, there you go. Now you have some circles that are filled to this color, and for some reason it's also yeah, that's not exactly what I understand here, but that's okay. Don't need to understand it all. Let's go draw blue, and so that's the background. The fill color is coming from, I don't know where that came from now. But we do have the outline color. I think there's a size for the outline, the outline size. Let's put that down to 0 so we don't even see that. Yeah, so now you just have the circles. Again, I don't know why they appear a different color though. Maybe that's a stack or something. Spacing. So that's a good one if you want to keep them separated well enough. 123. So now you have a better chance of getting some of these. This is probably a little bit too big. Where's the size there? 333. Test render. There, and with any luck, you'll get a circle that's almost perfectly or close enough to the center. Test render that a few times. A few too many, right? And you might get a circle. Let's see what happens if I have just one. Does it always show it? Yeah, looks no. Oh, look at me, lucky me. I have one that I like. So this is a circle. This is a pretty perfect circle. Save this one, it's valuable. Now, one thing you could do here actually is to select it with the selection tool, the magic wand, to get out of this, and then selection with the magic wand. And let's say you select the inside. The rest outside has not been selected. It's now multiplied with the magenta, so it's giving you that slightly different color, but you can also show the marching ants, and at that point you can simply pick that up as a custom brush. Right, so that's the selection here. You can even go to the shortcut here, copy the selection as brush, or copy with a little bit of a margin, and then that way when you store it, you can see that you have now a circle and a background that's transparent. So now show the brush, and there you go. So you can paint with that and do a whole lot of magic with that. Different colors, left button, right button, and so on. So that's basically another way to get to some sort of a circle. Now let's see something with the 3D. There is some 3D option too. we have the render 3D geometry. Now I don't know if we have a circular or a shape like a geometry. Sphere maps. No, that's maps. Tests. Bunny 2D. Yeah, I don't have a teapot. I don't have anything here that's just filled like a sphere. We would want to create one in Blender, for example, export it as an OBJ, and then take that in. And then you could possibly do some 3D rendered into a circle. Depending on the lighting and so on, it will be just fine. So let's do that as an exercise. Now this is definitely getting out of the idea of how to do a simple circle. Let's go do that. First of all, let's clear this. Let's get rid of this. Let's free the brush. Where's my brushes? Let's free it. Free at last. Okay. And let's go over to Blender. Alright, so here is Blender. I think it's version 4.2. Initially we have some sort of a cube. Let's select it and hit the delete key. And now I want to put insert a circle here, a sphere. So add. Oh, there's even a circular shape. You could just work with that. But I'm going to go with a sphere. UV sphere, Ico. Probably this one. There. Now it's a little bit jaggedy, so we can go with more subdivision. Let's add a modifier. And add a modifier, and we will give it deformation, probably. Smooth. We could do a smooth. We could do generate subdivision surface there. All right, and then simply give it a little bit more on that, so it looks really smooth. But it's not so much for the surface smoothing we want, not the shading, but the outline. We want that to be really, really not revealing its subdivision nature here. So if you make it to this point, it's probably as dense as you need it. And zoom out, it's definitely going to be even better. Now that's a very dense sphere. If you look at the wireless, actually this is just an approximated render here, but that's good enough. So let's go and save that, export that as an OBJ file. So we go to export as OBJ. And let's see, this is the documents. I like to put it in downloads. That's usually quite easy to find. And I'll put this sphere.obj. All right, and we don't really need many things. Colors, normals, UV coordinates, don't even need those. Well, maybe we do want the normals for our shading. Apply modifiers. Let's see what happens there. This is probably going to be a pretty big OBJ file. Maybe too big for us. Let's see. Let's find out. All right, I just restarted Howler. I wanted to take a fresh start here, and we still have some rendered circles, but let's go now and find our render geometry. There. So this is where we can go to the downloads, and we can find a sphere OBJ file. It's in alphabetic order. We should find it here somewhere. There it is. No. How come I cannot find it? There it is at the bottom. These were folders or symbolic links. Anyway, here's a OBJ file. Let's see if we can load that. Yay, look at that. We have a circle. Well, we have a sphere. It's 3D. And it's pretty big. It's pretty slow to re-render. So what I'm going to do, let's see. Shaded render. OpenGL, that's, oh, look at that. Look at how dense that's a tiny little set of triangles. We do need to change something here. So rotate. Yeah, it does react. You can see it's changing. The right button maybe to move it around. There you go. So that will center it. and then re-render it. Yeah, it takes about a second in my system here. And so let's say OBJ, let's go back to the shaded render. So with that, we can also drag it around with the right button. It's just a little bit slow because there are thousands of circles here, thousands of triangles. OBJ wireframe, let's go back to that. Let's see if we can zoom in with this button perhaps. I forget which. Oh yeah, there it is. Oh yeah, look at that. That's going to reveal how dense that mesh was. We probably did an overkill here. We probably did too much subdivision. But hey, it's possible. You can do this, and you can use that to generate a rendered sphere. Now, I don't care if you have it shaded this way or with an angle, but you have an outline that's a very perfect circular outline, I would say. Except that you have a bit of a perspective distortion perhaps, so you might even use the zoom here for a little bit less or more of that. You can do a couple of other things here. Let's move it. Let's move it to the back here. How do we move it? Oh, that's sideways. Let's say here, back to this. I thought there was a way to zoom it out. Okay, that's probably a rotation. Maybe that's moving it up. Oh, there you go. Up and down will bring it farther away. Okay, so with that, you can actually, you can use that to create various outlines of different sizes. And let's say we don't need the light. Let's bring it black. We don't need this light. Let's bring it black. Yeah, it's getting down to just having a single color now, right? Ambient, let's make sure it's black. And then at this point, you probably don't even have, no circular, no specular highlight, no change in bright. There's easily a way to render the sphere in such a way that it doesn't look like a shaded sphere. It's just black now. All right, so let's OK that, or make brush even, right? You don't need to go select it later. This will make it into a brush, and you could then do a different size, something like this, make it a little bit smaller, and then add that to the brush, and to wait for the blick. It will render it and capture it. There it is. Then you make it a little bit smaller yet. It doesn't matter if it moves around. It is going to center on that for the brush. So add it to the brush. So you just keep a few of those if you want quickly to make a number of circles that are filled, and turn that into an animated brush. Add to the brush. So here I have 4. Let's get one more. That's 4 of them. Let's get one more, a really tiny one, like this. And add that to the brush. There you go. So we now have 5. Okay, that. We now have 5, and it will store it in a custom brush for us. There it is. And it's an animated custom brush, right? If you look at the show film strip, you do have those 5 captured circles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was the big one we started, and gradually small. So you could use that to create a collection of images, right? This is an animated brush. You can store that. You definitely probably will want to store that. For the animated brushes here, you can first of all, store it, save it. That will save it as an A and B file, animated brush, but you can also convert it to image sequence. You can do a couple of things, and if you want to have it here as an image sequence, as an animation, you can render it from the animated brush. You can render it with the brush keyframer. So what you need first is actually a placeholder for that. Let's go clear that. Let's go make this normal, hide the film strip. So now I'm going to make a animation of at least 5. Let's give it a little bit more. Let's see, create. Let's give it 11 frames. And so we could stamp this one down. And say stamp this one here, then go to the next frame, next this one. it will need to custom. See, the thing is, it's going to be a bit difficult to work with because it needs to keep. Every time you go to the interface, you need to go back into here, and it seems like it's resetting to the beginning. Even though it's showing you now the bigger one, it's going to the first or the last one here, and this will therefore. Oh, look at that! It's actually incrementing through the different images, so that's good. It's useful. It's usable. You could actually adjust that behavior here too. Go to the first frame on the mouse, and we're not doing that, so it's actually incrementing every time you do a click. But the thing is, we may be doing more than one click before we actually see it. So one better way, I would say, is to right-click to clear all frames, and instead render that brush right into this, right? Remember, this is an animated brush with all the frames in it, so we can go and what do we do here? Animation, brush keyframer, there. And with the brush keyframer, you have that first brush image, but as you circle through them, as you cycle through the animation, you can see there's more. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? And then it keeps going, it's circling. It's recycling all of these. So you can easily just render that. Do it in a linear way, so it's not doing any sort of extra smooth position interpolation and other things that could trick it. But since we're not moving it, since we're not changing any parameters here, it probably won't make a difference. Still, I would keep it linear and then render that. So now you have, click that away, now you have these 5 frames, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and one more. We have a total of 11 frames here now. So you don't need them all, you need only the first 5. But what I'm seeing are 5 perfect circles. 5 perfect circles, and we're ready to use that in so many ways we've seen before to turn it into, for example, with the selection mask. Again, let's use the selection of the outside and store that, store selection, so we have it right there, and then we increase or decrease, like shrink. Let's go, we increase, we grow the selection. Since we selected the outside, it's going to grow to the inside. Let's go like that. So now we have it there, and we want this one to be the parent from which we subtract this. So let's go and subtract that. So now we have a circular selection on the outside and on the inside, right? And so you could erase that to white, and voila, you have a white circle. The rest is transparent. Let's say you want to erase it to a different color. Right click here to say reddish, something like that. Something like this, and you can fill that. Oops. Use the fill tool to fill it with red, or you can use the gradients. Let's use a circular gradient, and you can see the gradients here. Let's say we do one of those. Funky stuff, right? I love funky. Look at that. And then you pick that up as a custom brush. Doesn't matter if it's black here, doesn't matter if it's white here, it won't actually see it because it's going to be flagged as transparent, right? So this is the selection here. You can go to brush, copy selected as brush, and now you have it like this, right? The selection is gone, and you now have hollow circles with an interesting funky texture in it. And there's so many other things you can do to that. Certainly, let's go and erase and make this brush a little bit bigger, and voila. Alright, well, hopefully that will give you some ideas of what to explore when it comes to making a perfect circle. It's not perfect, but you can make it, so thanks for watching.